Hello, my name is Reshma, and I'm going to go through an example of how to launch an instance on AWS. The files for this are located under Resources. I'm in the DS10 course repo under Resources, under AWS. There's a few files here. I'll go to the first one, which is the prep file, which assumes that you've created an AWS account. It's a good idea to bookmark it and put your user ID and password somewhere where you can find it easily. I personally have a folder up here called DS10 where I have this is Metis, my fork, and the AWS Management Console. It just makes it easy to find things. I reviewed command line, and it's a little more complicated than Git. I did a survey of alumni, and I asked them what resources they used after graduating from the Metis Data Science Bootcamp, and quite a few, many people use AWS, so this is definitely a must-have skill. So I'm going to go back to this folder, and I'm going to go to the Setup Cloud. And the first step is that we are going to log into the AWS console. And I'm going to open that in a new tab right there. And I'm going to sign into the console. And when I sign in, I have this EC2, and what I want to do is EC2 stands for Elastic Cloud Computing, and I want to click on that icon. So back to the notes. For new users, when you first log in and set up your account, they're going to ask for a credit card for logging in. And you get a 1 year free tier to play with AWS, and after that there will be fees. We do have to be careful about what instances we use and what storage we use, but we'll go over that more later. And so I just want to say that the instructions for setting up the instance are all over here, and we're just going to go back and forth between the instructions and the console and the terminal. All right, so when I come over here going to click on, this is EC2 option, I just also want to say that we want to click the North Virginia option, or wherever you're located, we really want to click on the one that's really closest to us. And for those of us in New York, it's the North Virginia option. So I'm going to click on EC2. And I'm going to click on this button here that says Launch Instance. Right? AWS is pretty amazing. They have all these images that are available. AMI stands for Amazon Machine Image, and the one that we are going to choose is the fourth one down. It is the Ubuntu server, and it is free tier eligible. And Ubuntu, we run Linux on Ubuntu. And we're going to click on this blue button here that says Select. All right. And the instance type that we want is the one that's there by default. It's the T2 Micro, and it tells us in green it's the free tier eligible. We're going to click on Next. We're going to configure instance details. All right. And for this one, we can accept all of the defaults. We don't have to change anything. The next, we're going to add storage. So in the free tier instance, they give us by default 8 GIVs. We can actually up that all the way up to 30 without any charge, and that's kind of good to have so we don't have to expand the memory later on. So we'll just expand it to the maximum right now when we set up our instance. Next, we're going to add tags, and if I go back to the instructions, it tells me what I'm going to tag my instance, and I'm going to call it AWS_DS, this one right here. So I'm going to call that AWS_DS. And next I'm going to configure the security group. All right, so by default we have the SSH, which is 22, and if I go back to the instructions, we're going to add the port, select custom TCP rule, and we're going to add port 80 for source anywhere. So custom TCP rule, port 80, source is anywhere. Okay, and then we can also do this HTTPS, which is port range 443. What was that? HTTPS. Right there, port range 443. And that was also anywhere. So we're going to click on anywhere. Okay, and the last one, we can do that later. We can also we can add ports later on. So for now, I'm just going to stick with these 3 ports. I'm going to review and launch. All right, and this is, it says review instance and launch it, and it gives us a summary of what we picked. We picked the Ubuntu server, the free tier eligible. The instance type is T2 micro. The security groups, they gave us by default security group name called Launch Wizard 6. These are the ports that we set up and so on, and we can launch the instance. All right. The next step is it asks us to select an existing key pair or create a new key pair. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new key pair. I actually have an existing key pair, but just to go through the example, I'm going to create a new key pair. I am going to call it, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to follow the instructions. I'm going to call it AWS underscore key. You can call it whatever you want, but it's good to follow the instructions because they're sort of consistent throughout, and so you'll know what to do. I'm going to download the key pair. Okay. It says error creating key pair. The key pair AWS key already exists. All right, so for me, I'm just going to call it 2, but you can call yours key. I'm going to download the key pair. I'm going to save the file, okay? And it's going to save it to my downloads folder. Okay. So for me, what I'm going to do just to sort of clean things up a little bit for downloads, okay, it says AWS underscore key 2. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to leave this screen as it is. I'm going to go back to the instructions, and I've downloaded the key pair, and then I'm going to go to my downloads folder on the terminal. Okay, so over here, I'm going to open the terminal. I'm going to create this one, which is a bit bigger. There we go. And I'm going to do I'm going to CD into the downloads folder. That's where I am. And I'm going to do reverse T, and it gives me this AWS underscore key2. I'm just going to copy it over. You won't have to do this, but I'm going to copy mine over into, just so it matches you. And I see that it's there. Great. Okay. The next step is, it says, move your file into this folder, which is your root.ssh. If you do not have a folder, create one. So I'm going to try going into this. I have this folder, but if you don't, create it with this make directory and then .ssh. Okay, but I have mine already. And I'm going to do ls, okay? And I'm going to move the file. So I'm going to copy this syntax here, and it's going to tell me from my users, I'm going to change it to my username, which is Reshma Sheikh. So from users Reshma Sheikh downloads, it's this key file. I'm going to copy it into ~ssh, and I'm going to call it that. Okay? When I do ls again, notice that the file appears. So it has been moved to this directory. All right. So the next step that I have to do is I have to make my file read-only with the chmod 400 file name. Okay. So the way to do that is I'm going to do notice right now these are the security settings. It is admin, group, user. And everybody has read access and write access at admin. So I'm going to do chmod. What was that? It was 400, chmod 400, and it's AWS underscore key.pem file. I'm going to do ls again, and notice over here that it's changed the settings to only read only at the admin level, and that's what I want, so that's good. Progress. Okay. And notice how the permissions have been updated. Yep, we agree. Now it says check that you have these two files, ID underscore RSA and ID underscore RSA PUB within your SSH folder. And I do. I have the file here and I have this file over here. If you don't have these two files, to create them is quite easy. You take this, copy this, which is that SSH key, and press enter, and then press enter again when it comes up. I'm not going to create it because I already have them created, right? Okay, so that's great. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go back to the EC2 Management Console. We've downloaded the key pair, and now we're going to do launch instances. All right, the next step we want to do is we want to create billing alerts, and if you just press right, if you click on this create billing alerts, in case these are not checked by default, you want to check them. You want to receive PDF invoices by email, you want to receive billing alerts, and you want to receive billing reports also. So save preferences. Notice it tells me it's saved, and I'm going to click out of this window. All right, I'm going to scroll down. It says View Instances. All right, notice that my instance has been created. It's though I have quite a few running, but you'll just have one. It's called AWS underscore DS, which is what I called it. It's in green, which means it's running. And this is the public IP address that has been assigned to it. So that's, actually it's right there also. So that's great. What's the next step in our instructions? All right, so we want to sign into it. So the way to do that is I'm going to copy this syntax right over here. I'm going to go over to, right, so what the syntax says is it says SSH into using this key file that I have to connect my computer with AWS. It's in that, and Ubuntu, and then this right here, I want this to be the public IP address. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this. And my public IP address is right here. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Perhaps I should just type it in. It is 52.23, 52.23, and 252.46. 252.46. Are you sure you want to continue connecting? It asked me, and I said yes. And lo and behold, I am in. I have actually logged onto Amazon Web Services, onto their Ubuntu server, and this is my IP address. If I type ls, there is nothing. There are no files there. So this is great. This is a success. I'm going to take a break right here,